Good morning, Carolyn.
How are you today?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm great. I love that we're our tops are matching. It's one of these things that it's like, are we going to match?
Uh,
And
yeah,
we're
it's a
pretty
great
much
day.
matching again today. It is a great day. It
Yeah,
is a great day.
yeah, a great,
Well,
great day.
a great day. How are you? Anything new?
Everything's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
New. I fucking hate that question.
I know. Well, you know what? I noticed we chatted briefly yesterday and I noticed your arm mobility is coming back. So I think your chiropractor is doing some wonderful things.
Thank you. Yes, I am making progress every week. I can put two hands on the steering wheel. Actually, I'm getting close to be able to turn the steering wheel with only my left hand. That's my measurable outcome for this week.
Nice, nice. Well, you
I
know what?
know.
On this journey to healing, you have to look at all the little things that all the little what it's called? Victories that you have, right? So
Exactly.
congratulations.
Moving up from the 2 pound weight to the 3 pound weight.
Hey, at least no one's wiping your bum. That's like it's you
You know
just
what?
progress, right? Like you had
That
that
puts
where
it in
people were
perspective.
dressing you. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was never quite the bum wiping bad, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, when someone
yeah.
has to
Thank you
help
for
you put your
that.
clothes on, right? Like that's pretty severe.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True that.
True that. Well, let's dig in today. Today we're moving into the anger chapter. The anger chapter. It's called the anger gas station. Do you want to
Mm,
describe this for us a little bit? I'm not familiar with this stop. Just kidding. I really am
right.
familiar.
Well, it wasn't my usual stop, although I've been there and I've also been along for the ride. Uh yeah, that's the stop where when we get triggered, and mostly it's we're afraid, but we don't realize we're afraid because the anger supersedes and covers up and masks our fear. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what it is we're afraid of. We don't want to look at it. So we get angry and indignant, and there's lots of different levels to the anger. Frustration is in there too, and it's one of those it's one of those emotions. Actually, it's an interesting emotion because it has the capacity to escalate and ramp up, you know, uh, in a more extreme way than a lot of other emotions do. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
And it carries a really important message. I mean, just like all the other feelings, anger arrives to tell us something, to teach us something. And when we can get a little curious about why, what and why we're so angry, it helps us understand and figure out what that message is.
Mm.
Yeah. What makes you angry? What are what are the top things? What has something triggered your anger recently? I mean,
Oh,
why today are we
honestly,
talking about
yeah, I
this?
know. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Because I think if my kids who are adults now and living with me, and have their own attitudes and stuff like that. Like when kids are
Yeah.
little, they're pretty pliable. They do what you want them to do when you want them to do it. And you cannot control it, which is interesting because your chapter's about that too a little bit. We're going to dive into that. But when they're older and they just sort of do what they want, and then communication, right? So miscommunication between the children and me is just so infuriating. And yet and I noticed this with the way you talk about your boys is the kids, when you get mad at them, can come back at you with some lightness and funny jokes and stuff like that, which is really nice actually to break that tension. Because it kind of snaps me out of, oh, you're starting to kind of tank emotionally and this is not appropriate. And most times it's not even necessary. The last two times I got upset with my both of my different boys, one was over moving this microphone and like because it's got a boom arm and then it fell off the table and then it was felt messed up and I was frustrated with it, and the other kid was telling me he put a little jar in a cupboard and I didn't know what cupboard it was. And he's like, just the cupboard. And I'm like, we have 50 million cupboards in this kitchen. Which effing cupboard? please. So that's me. But do you find that you said it wasn't a stop for the most part for you in that victim town? So anger for the most part wasn't, it's not your MO, is it?
It's not, no, it's not my MO. As a child, I learned to do the opposite, to hold that all in and not express it. Don't have a voice. Don't express your needs. Just don't rock the boat. Do whatever is required to keep the peace and keep everyone happy. So my anger got and my frustration got shoved down and locked up really tight. And that also poses a whole different set of problems. So expressing anger is something that is not usually taught, and it's something that society doesn't welcome. And it's really interesting because people assume they make this connection between anger and safety and um and other things that just they aren't true, you know. I mean, and when we express our anger, very few of us can feel proud of the way we did that after the fact. You know, anger and its expression are one of the things I think that causes the most shame too,
Mm,
right?
interesting. Oh, for sure,
um
for sure.
yeah,
Because
so
it's
anger as an expression was not my MO, although I did witness it. Yeah,
mhm, mhm, mhm.
yeah.
Yes, yes. And you lived with it. You lived with it like throughout your life. You kind of was um
I did, for sure. It
yeah.
was yeah, it was anger and frustration at the situation, at whoever was responsible for what happened to Linda, for at the police for not having answers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to get into the stories too much in this chapter because we actually discussed a little bit of a bit of the stories already in previous episodes. One of the things that you say though in on page 102 of Navigating Shitstorms, you said, then I watched all the adults in my world become more helpless with every day that passed without answers or Linda's return. I knew I was on my own. I armored up to face the world by myself, keeping my anger inside to avoid upsetting my already seriously upset family. And this is the chapter where you talk about having to cut the newspaper clippings and not watching the news.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about your mom's anger, and you talk about it in the context of To Catch a Killer. That was a show that aired on the Oprah Winfrey Network. I don't think it's on still, but back in 2015, they did an episode about Linda, and your family was involved in it. And I watched it this morning in order to
Oh,
prepare for
wow.
this. And I wanted to ask you first of all, did you ever end up watching that show because your mom wanted you to, in and she was angry about it, and you
Yeah,
did
she was
not?
really angry. I did not at the time. They dropped off a DVD of that episode before it was aired, and my mom gave me a copy. I didn't. I put it in a box and closed it up and set it somewhere really deep in my storage room. I don't even remember where I put it. Yes, I did watch that episode. I watched it as I was writing this book and doing research. Not only I did all the research about childhood trauma and everything else, but I also was doing a lot of Googling and research about Linda and her case. And yeah, I watched it. One of the hardest things for me about watching that episode was that my mom's on it and she can speak. And my mom can't speak anymore. So it just evoked a lot of emotions watching my mom and hearing my mom's voice, hearing her talk again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What struck me was how alike you two look, and especially like just like your actual just face and your cheekbones. And she did a mannerism. She did the way she moved some way. I thought, oh my goodness, is that not Liz? That's why
Yeah,
I
that's
had,
genetics, right?
yeah,
Can't avoid that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, there definitely are some similarities.
And your mom and your uncle John in that show were very well spoken, had so much hope. There's a lot of emotion and that goes into the whole, the hope of maybe this is going to uncover some clues, maybe this is going
Yeah.
to do something. And your mom was frustrated with the way the episode turned out, the sensationalism and that kind of thing, and I do agree. I mean, that was part of it, and it really, nothing really came of any of the information, correct?
Uh, Not to my knowledge, no. I mean, the police records have not been released to me, so I can't say for certain, but yes,
Yeah.
nothing new was discovered. No new people came forward. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Interesting. Um, yeah. So, yeah, did you feel after you had watched the episode, did you agree with your mom's assessment of how the, the host was Mike Arntfield, I guess, who's a professor at the University of Western Ontario, who led a group of what seemed like students to me, but they were maybe
Yeah.
graduated students, like they had their PhDs or a master's at least. Yeah, what was your take on it?
Um, so I need to premise this by saying my memory is still really shitty.
Right.
And it was well over a year ago, probably closer to 2, that I watched that episode. Um, my mom was mostly angry. She was she was angry about his approach, and I've never met the man, so I, reserve judgment. I have no opinion on him as a human or in his capacity for this. Mostly, I think she was angry about the concepts, the assumptions that he made about what might have happened to her without evidence. He proposed some really horrific possibilities, and she didn't want to face that.
Yeah.
That was mostly her anger, I think, and his approach, the way he handled all of that,
Mhm,
made her really angry.
mhm, mhm.
Um, she was an angry person in those years about almost everything. She just was. She was really bitter,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it was eating her up. And I believe that her unprocessed anger was a major contributing factor to her stroke,
Just like her dad.
just like her dad.
Yeah.
Yes. And both of them ended up with the condition aphasia, where they couldn't talk.
And I'd like to say,
Yeah.
what are the odds of that? But since I'm a big believer in synchronicity, I think
Right.
the odds were
Well,
pretty big that could happen. That could
right.
happen. Yeah.
So, needless to say, not that I'm a little paranoid, but I'm a lot fucking paranoid about
Mm.
having a stroke and ending up with aphasia.
And
Uh,
yet, you're not an angry person and you've been working on it. So,
Correct. And I think that learning the techniques to not hold anger in is key, because
yeah.
our bodies know when we hold feelings and they get stuck. And of all the feelings, I think anger, um because of the intensity that it has, it has the capacity to do more physical damage than any other emotion.
Mm. Mhm.
Grief, yeah, well, there's lots of really hard emotions, but I think anger, unprocessed anger, is extremely damaging to our bodies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So my experience with it is I love sort of the idea of the emotional scale and emotions having, either they could be dense, they could feel dense, or they could feel light, right? And
Yep.
if you're and I'll use a scale like this. So, love and peace and joy, those are all light emotions. And then
Yep.
you've got within the anger scale, I would say you've got like irritation, frustration,
Hmm.
anger, rage, right? And rage would be a
Yep.
more dense feeling than anger, right?
Yep. And
But
hate. And I would add hate.
hate could be in there,
Hate in there too. Yeah.
right? And then on the scale that I use, powerlessness and grief and depression and unworthiness is actually below anger. So it's actually a denser emotion than that.
Yeah.
And what I think has happened in society is that we say, well, anger doesn't look nice because it's often aggression and it's often ugly. It's hard to deal with. It's scary at times, depending on what's happening. So just be depressed. Just be quiet, because depression's quiet and anxiety's quiet, and we keep it to ourselves. But anger is
Yep.
explosive. But when I was depressed and had some anxiety, it's a very immobilizing emotion. And when I finally in 2020 got angry, fuck,
It's
it felt
better.
good.
Yeah. It's better. At least it's
Ah,
coming out. At least it's coming out.
yes, and I could
Yes.
move through it, but I got
Yes.
stuck because I didn't know how to move through it. And in earlier episodes, we talked about the ego and needing some ego to help guide us. It helps us cross the street safely and that kind of thing. But the anger is just an emotion meant to be moved through us to help us get back up to those lighter emotions. And I didn't know how to process it, and I did get really sick, and thank God I got really sick. It was almost as if my inner being was saying, like, we've got to take her down to the worst possible
Yep.
thing so that she can figure out what she needs to do next. And that's what I did. And so for you, in going to the place, talking to your therapists, and then you've had your beautiful soul coach who helped you through things. What are some of the concepts that they taught you to help move through that anger, so that we're then moving through it and going up to those lighter feeling emotions? Because even like irritations feels better than anger.
Yeah. 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 It's a great analogy about the density of it. And, when it gets really, really thick and slodgy is when we get stuck for sure. I mean, everybody's different as to how they process and release anger. Um, One of the things that I did was to lean against a wall with my two hands and my whole body, and just like literally try to push that wall over, try to topple that wall, and with some verbal expression too, whether that's grunting or screaming or whatever. That has helped me release a little bit. Um, Exercise is a great one for a lot of people. Talking about it is also a good one. One of the strategies I like to use to decode what the message is, because for me it's a two-step process. It's releasing that anger, but it's also understanding why the anger was there, right? And if I don't know what else to say, and I'm feeling this anger bubbling up in me, I just think to myself, and sometimes say aloud, huh, isn't that interesting? I wonder why I'm feeling this anger. What has brought it on? What just happened? What did I just hear? Who just said something to me? And to get curious about what brought it on, without any judgment around how you're expressing or the level or anything else, but just why. When have I felt this same frustration and anger? Because it's not often about exactly what brought it on, or
Mhm,
in that moment. It's
mhm.
something else that we haven't dealt with, and it's usually something that we're afraid of rejection, or feeling the pain, afraid of the sadness, or what something might mean. The anger is covering up something else, a fear. And if I can stay calm and get curious, that in and of itself often just dissipates that frustration, that, oh, what the fuck is this all about?
Yeah.
Gently, and without judging myself. Or gee, that was a pretty over the top reaction, Liz.
Yeah.
You know, some humor too, when we can laugh at ourselves, even if we've done something that was embarrassing or, you know, that we regret or not proud of. To look at it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think anger comes from a lack of control, lack of
Yep.
being able to control whatever it is, even controlling understanding why I'm angry. And often anger comes along with a story too, right? Like
Always.
you
Yeah.
did that, you did that. It's always outside of us. You. Not it's not me, right? And
No.
and I think the hardest thing is coming to terms, not the hardest thing, but coming to terms that it's it's all being generated from within, and
Yeah.
that I can retell the story in a different way and see it in a different way, and then the expression of that is different as well, but I have control. And for me, when I think of especially 2020, and I decided to go to psychotherapy, and I was going to uncover all my anger, it was going to be the best idea ever. And not realizing you get what you focus on, but I guess I needed to realize, I needed to do it to realize it was a freaking never ending spiral, because everybody was to blame for my unhappiness and I could not control anybody. So
Right.
then I'm
You
like,
can't ever get out of that.
I'm never going to be happy because I can't
Right.
control anybody but me. Right.
Right.
So I think that was a huge epiphany of like, oh, I got to do something different. I have to do something different. I have to re-see things in a different way. And I have to understand how to operate in this world differently than I'd ever heard of before. For me, that was a big thing.
Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
that
That's
was a good epiphany.
yeah, a monumental discovery. Yeah.
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 So, one of the things that stood out in the video that I watched this morning of the episode with Linda was the date of her disappearance. Like maybe I had never paid attention to it. I'm not sure, but it was November. They said on the show it was November 13th, 1968. Although I read in a news article it was November 14th. But doesn't really matter. But it was November
Yeah.
something.
I have it here. I know. I know. And that, oh my gosh, like that is right now. Right. Um, yeah, it was November 13th.
Right, November
So,
13th.
and as we're recording this, won't be aired for a little bit, but today is November 16th.
November 16th. Okay, so
Yeah,
I
so
I
3
want to
days
mention
ago.
yeah, 3 days ago, which is really significant. And I want
Yeah.
to point something out which you might not ever have thought of. And I only make this correlation because I have a friend that had a brother that passed away a number of years ago, number years ago. And I remember, I think I met her about a couple of years after he passed away, and then she would tell me he passed away in November, and then she would say, as each year sort of came around and we would acknowledge his death, she'd be sick around the time that he passed away,
Mm,
sick, year after year after year. And
wow.
when did you go to the place?
Oh my gosh. Yes. So I went to the place November 22nd. And so that's holy shit.
I'm just getting chills as like you read.
Yeah.
Do you
You know,
see
so
how
so
interesting?
if Linda was last seen November 13th, it was almost 48 hours before her, or it was 48 hours before her roommates reported to that called my grandparents to say she was missing.
Yeah.
So that would have been, you know, say November 15th. And I mean, it would have been timely for my first memory, the night of the wailing. That would have occurred, you know, um, I'm guessing probably 2 or 3 nights after that. You know, I think that my mom and everyone was just in shock for the first 3 or 4 days after. So say from November 15th to maybe the 20th or 21st, there was still this hope. I mean, she was 19. There was still this hope that she had just gone on some, you know, some weekend joy trip. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For whatever reason that she'd just taken off with somebody, and was and we were going to hear from her any day that that she was back, and she was fine, you know, and there's that denial too, right?
Mhm.
So I don't think that it really sunk in for about a week after, which all would have been around November 22nd, the night of the wailing. And how many freaking years later? 50, 54, 55 years later,
55
that
55 years now. 55 years. This is 55 years.
So 55 years later that it all came to a head for me.
Oh, for you. Yeah. So that would have been
Yeah.
3 years ago, 52 years later. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that
No, because
interesting?
I'm sick. Yeah. No, it would have been 55.
Well, it all came to
Anyways,
a head. No, no, no. She's
yeah.
been gone for 55 years now, but you went
Yes.
to the place 3 years ago. So
Right.
52
Yeah.
years ago. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you would
Yeah.
have been
But
late
all
50s.
November. And November is Remembrance Day.
Interesting.
You know, the whole focus of November is remembering and
Yeah.
honoring lives that were lost. Right? There's that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot.
It'd be interesting I mean, you'll do the math, but to know if what month your grandpa and your mom had their strokes. Do you recall? And maybe it's not correlated.
Oh, I could find out. My mom's,
Because May would be significant too, because Linda was found in May. So it would just be interesting to know if their strokes happened in May or November.
yeah, yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that.
Yeah.
It might be hard to figure out my grandpa's. There's not many people left to ask, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would remember those details. But my mom's, I can certainly figure out.
Yeah. Interesting.
Hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
Very
Now,
interesting.
the other thing I thought of as I was watching this To Catch a Killer documentary is the first big killing in Canada that I recall that really rocked my world were and Americans, if Americans are watching this, they might not remember, but Ontarians will remember this, was the Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey murders by Paul Bernardo. And Kristen French was abducted in Burlington. Nope. Leslie Mahaffey was abducted in Burlington. Kristen was abducted in St. Catharines. And I thought, holy crap. Holy crap.
Yeah, Burlington. I know. Sleepy little suburban town.
Liz was in Burlington when that happened. Was that something that hit your radar, or did it not, because you were not watching the news?
No, that definitely did hit my radar. I wouldn't have seen it firsthand. Somebody would have told me about it. So I was very aware of that. Yeah.
And did it,
Yeah.
do you recall the emotions that you felt when you heard about that?
I don't. And here's where my disassociation really shows up. I did know about it. I do know about it. I remember that I did know about it, but I don't remember how old I was or where I was or how I felt. What year was that? Do you remember?
Okay, 1990 was when they murdered the sister Tammy, I think her name is, and then 91 was Mahaffey and 92 was French.
Okay, so I was living in the States then.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I was,
yeah. So it wasn't right in your front door.
It wasn't right in my front door, and I was, yeah, I had babies.
Yeah.
I had babies, so I was very, preoccupied with that. It would have been a really big thing for my mother, though. I've probably blocked out all the conversations that my mother would have wanted to unpack and ruminate. She did a lot of ruminating.
Of course. And then I wonder if your mother ever felt jealous, interestingly enough, that the Mahaffey and the French murders were solved and brought to justice. And that was an element of closure.
Yeah. I believe she would have been happy for the not jealous, but happy for the family that they at least had, not happy. I mean, what a terrible, tragic occurrence, but to have answers. When I had conversations with my mom about ever finding who was responsible, her wish, her fervent hope was more to learn why than to see punishment or yeah, she wants, we all want to know what happened and why it happened. Was it an accident? Was it random? Was it premeditated? Yeah. Why? Is it the looming void?
Yeah. That's tough.
And I do believe that we will have answers within the next couple of years.
Mm, that will be satisfying after all these years.
Yeah, yeah, it will.
Hmm. All right. Yeah, I just one last thing. I really actually appreciated the quote that you opened this chapter with. It's by Neil Gaiman. Am I saying that right? Gaiman from the Graveyard Book. Wherever you go, you take yourself with you. And
Mhm.
that goes back to, dealing with the anger and dealing with any emotion that we're dealing with. I remember walking a lot when I was really angry because energy was moving through me and I was just needed to like
Yep.
move it. And God, I took myself on those walks. I had to still be with myself after
Yep. Yep. No matter how hard you
I
try,
had
no
left
matter
everyone
how,
behind at the house and there I was.
yeah, we do a lot of things to try and avoid. I mean, that's getting into the denial trails. But the thing about anger is, it doesn't matter how hard we try to mask it, cover it up, shove it down, deny it, control it. Uh, it has a life of its own until we allow ourselves to feel it in its entirety. And we don't have any control over what that's going to look like or how long that's going to take. We are just along for the ride.
Yeah,
But that's the only way is through it.
yeah,
And then it'll leave like all the other feelings. They're meant to flow through us, deliver a message, flow through us. We get the enjoyment or the pain of feeling the feeling, and hopefully we get the intel of the message they were
yeah,
delivering, and then they move on and we're on to the next. It's just a constant flow.
yeah. Yeah, I
So
really appreciate that. That was one of the things that my mentor coach did with me a lot of is feeling the feeling, not just stuffing it down or trying to get up that emotional scale without acknowledging where you're at, because then you're just basically suppressing one thing and to that's just going to pop up again, right? So it was feeling
yep.
it and then just choosing to let it go. Ah, let it go. Visualize a bubble and the bubble's floating away, or something's popped, or you drop it and it let it go. Now, it doesn't mean it's gone right away, but it seems for me to sort of dissipate the energetic charge that it had. And I might
Yep.
have to feel it and let it go again and again, but then it
Yep.
gets easier and easier and I feel lighter and lighter. And then I might be moving from anger up into frustration, which isn't as bad. But the idea is to continue to move up into
Move up that
contentment.
scale.
You just want to,
Yep.
just baby steps. You can't take a huge leap. I'm not moving from anger to contentment. That would be
No,
way too big of a leap, but I can move up in incremental steps, right? So
exactly.
but I
Yeah.
appreciate you constantly do say that. You say, like, feel the feeling and use it to move up and use it to just continue going. And I really appreciate that about, that concept in your book.
Yeah, and little bits at a time. Anger's a tough one, and there's some people, lots of people that have had horrific experiences around which the anger and the pain is is a ton, right? And so I would invite people to, if that's what they're processing, be gentle. Be gentle with yourself and take it slow.
Yeah.
And all the little bits of letting go will add up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm, yeah. Oh, thank you for that. Okay. We're going to just do a few questions before we go so I can get to know you a little bit better. Would you rather? Would you
Would I
rather win the
rather?
would you and I don't think I asked this one yet. Would you rather win the lottery or live twice as long? I've not asked that. Did I? No.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Live twice as long. I'm going to say win the lottery only because money is an energy, and I don't, you never know how long you're going to live. I don't know if I want to live long, long, long. If I live twice as long, I'm going to outlive lots of people, like what was that movie? Um, uh,
Before
with the
the Green
woman,
Mile, the Green Mile, that guy was Tom Hanks' character was
Yeah, but there was another
punished.
movie with a woman, Ava Angelina, or uh, and she lived forever, but she would be in these love relationships, and then they would die. Like, she just kept losing people. She lived for
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that doesn't really. I think that would be a very lonely, hard existence. I could spread a lot of good and do a lot of really good things in the world with money. Lottery, bring it on.
Love it. Lottery. Okay, lottery it is. Would you rather be without your phone, your smartphone, or your computer for a week?
I could easily live without both. Honestly, it's one of my favorite things to do is just
Mm.
unplug. I would if I oh my gosh. Yeah, I like to live without both for a week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But say you had to take one away for a week. You just only get one. Which one would you choose?
I would keep my phone
Me
over
too.
my computer, it's just more portable.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Would you rather, this is a morose one. Would you rather lose your vision or your hearing?
I would rather lose my hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either would be super hard. Um, yeah, our senses are really interesting. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be my choice.
Mhm.
Yours?
I used to play that game a lot when I was little with the series. Like, would I rather be deaf or blind? Neither, of course. I
Right.
would rather lose my hearing than my sight.
Yeah.
Yeah, to because I think I appreciate my sight more than my hearing, although I appreciate all my senses quite a bit. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think I
What's your
think that would
favorite
be
sense?
hmm, my very favorite's probably my sight.
Yeah.
Although I think the most underrated is smell,
Yeah, I love my sense of smell.
right?
I do.
I was saying the other day I walked outside and I like to smell the air in the morning, and sometimes the air smells
Yes.
better than other times, right?
The
You live by
forest
the
air, the ocean air.
ocean air,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
how about people smells? How about the smell of a newborn baby's
Oh
head?
my goodness. Or
Oh,
fresh sheets.
snort. I'm a snorter. I am a snorter.
Oh,
I love my sense of smell so much. I've been
yeah.
known to snort babies'
Oh
heads.
my goodness. I also like I like touch too though. I am a very sensory
So do
person.
I.
And
Yep.
when I have heard there's one spiritual channel that I listen to in particular, and someone has asked her in the past about senses, and they have said that there's no sense of touch in non-linear, in the non-physical. There's no sense of touch, but they can create sound and sight and that kind of thing. So touching is one of the things that was most
Yeah.
precious once you're not in this reality. And I thought, well, that isn't that interesting that I am, are you familiar with love languages?
Yep.
Sense of touch is my biggest love language. So I find that interesting that touch is so important to me and
Yeah.
what the channel says. But yeah.
Yeah, it is to me too. And I think that there was a huge void around that through COVID. I'm a
Hmm.
hugger.
Hmm.
I've always been a hugger, and yeah, the sense of touch is integral. All the studies around touching for babies and everything else. But true confession, I have booked a massage for no other purpose than to have a human touch me.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah,
If you're not in a
yeah,
relationship,
yeah,
then
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't get the touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things I miss most
Yeah.
about my children being little. And I listen thinking about how my relationship with my husband has shifted. I didn't need him to touch me as much when I was a mom doing the thing with the kids. But now that the kids are older and they're not giving you the hugs and the kisses and everything else, I'm like,
Yep.
oh, isn't that interesting? I do miss it. I do miss it so much. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Me too.
yeah.
All right. Is that it?
Yep,
Got
that's
any
it.
more? All
Have a
right.
I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for meeting with me, and I look forward to a nice
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah, you
Take
take care.
care.
Have a great day.
Okay. You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.